Right, I'm going to try to explain view range and underlay objects and certain things that you can see above the cut plane. Now, this probably means absolutely nothing to you at the moment, but hopefully, with a bit of luck and the wind behind us, we should be able to get this message across. So, I have got this plan, okay? And what I have done is created a family of lines. So if I go into 3D, let's cancel that. I've created this grid because you can't see these things in the 3D view. So I've got these grid lines. So the Z-axis, which is the one going up, this is an elevation, is in blue. The red is the X-axis, and the green is the Y-axis. Okay, and I've turned on thick lines, okay, so we can see exactly what's going on. So back to the 3D view. So these are our levels here, the green and the red. So this is level 0, this is level 1, this is level 2, and there's a level 3 and a 4 above it, which aren't shown. I've also got some beds on level 1, and some furniture and some kitchen units and in level 0. And the important thing is that these are referred to as casement in Revit. And these are windows, as we should recognize. This pink thing is a generic model. And the reason I have got windows, generic models, casement is to explain some of the things you can and can't see via different view ranges, cut options in this program. It's all slightly confusing, okay, but I'm going to attempt to get the message across if you're all not already freaked out by the fact that these are actually the grids and they're going up, and these are the levels and they're going across. If we go down to our level 0, then we can see what's going on here. Okay, now how in my level 0 can I see the tops of these things, as opposed to if I go to my site floor plan, I can't see anything on that. The significant difference is that the view range on a site plan extends much higher than the view range on a level plan. So I can see those in level 1, level 0. I can see the beds in level 1. Oh, and I can see outlines of stuff below it. How is that happening? Level 2, I can't see anything. So I've got nothing on level 2, but why can't I see the stuff behind it? Level 3 and level 4 is exactly the same. Okay, I can't see any of the floors now on this layout. I can't see the outline of the floor on this one, but I can see the outline of the floor on this one, and I can't see the red lines or the green lines on these upper levels. So there's got to be something in this system that's allowing me to see certain bits and not other bits. For example, in level 3 I can see the section cut on the markers, on the grids, but I can't see any of the geometry. Back to level 0, and I'll attempt to show you what is happening. So to control what you can see, and because Revit allows you to see everything, then it stands to reason that they have to have some sophisticated methods of controlling whether you see things or not see things. Now, I'm not going to jump around too much. I'm not going to explain the visibility graphics options just yet, but that is another reason why you might not be able to see something. But in our floor plan view, because I've made sure nothing is selected, if I select an object, then it's going to highlight and I get this modify option. So I click away into nothingness and I get this floor plan, which is a family, and it's got lots of different bits and pieces going on with it. But I come down to the extents option, and this section here, view range, this is what I need to click on, edit. And this brings me up my view range dialog box, and I'm going to extend this show button out so it gives us a nice little sort of visual of what's actually going on. So you've got 7 different parts to this, and number 7 is the entire view range. Okay, that's from the top of the primary range to the bottom of the view depth. That's exactly what we can possibly hope to see if we've got everything sort of lined up, working for us. So let's explain this top line, which is indicated here. That is the top of the primary range. So within this little rectangle, we've got the primary range stuff. Then we've got the view depth, which is this yellow section down here, and all of it makes up the view range. So top is associated with the current level that we're on. Okay, so we're in level 0. So the top of the primary range is currently 2.3 meters up from level 0. So anything within that sort of zone, we've got a chance of seeing. Hence we can see this casement units here, and we can see the windows there. We can also see the top of the box, even though it's pink in one view and it's grey in another view. That's to do with something else. And we can also see the top of the telly, which isn't a generic model. The cut plane is associated with the floor plane, and it has to be associated with the current floor plane. We can't change that option, and that's currently set at 1500. And then the bottom of the primary range is set to the level of the primary range, so basically the floor line. The view depth is by default set to 0, but this view depth thing is quite useful. If I had maybe a hole in the floor, for example, and then I set this to a lower value, then I might be able to see stuff that's below it. And this comes in handy when you've got an atrium level, maybe, and you want to see the stairs going all the way down or things on the floor below it. This sort of thing, there are other tools as well to help, but this is the sort of way you can control that depth. So let's have a little play around with this. So currently our cut plane is around about 1500 mil, and we're cutting through these cabinets, and we can see in plan all the other bits and pieces and this sort of model text, and we're cutting through the window as well. Now let's just go to this section cut. So if I say cancel for a second and click on this, this is a section marker, okay, and that's created by clicking on this option on the quick access toolbar or on the view toolbar, because it's related to something we can see. We've got the section option there. So you click, drag, and then this thing will set up a visual line, which we can control the heads of these by scrolling through these options. So none, there's not a little dot there, it's because it's selected. So that, or that option. And same the other side as well. We've also got flip arrow, which is going to flip it from one way to the other. And this dotted blue line is kind of the most important bit. This is the extent to which we can see bits and pieces. It's the crop line, as it were. This is the extent in the distance, and this is the crop feature on the side. So if I drag that in, so we couldn't see this, so it's cropping it beyond that. Right click on this, and then went to go to view. Then this is our section. We can see the crop. Okay, that's turned on. That button there showing crop. If I hide the crop view, then it looks like that. I turn the crop view on. If I don't crop, then we can see the crop, but it's not actually cutting. It shows us the extents of everything else. In the distance is the objects that we can or cannot see depending on the depth of that blue line. So I just turn the crop back on. I go back to my level 0 plan. Now if I drag this, I know there's a couple of beds up here which I put on the upper floor. So if I drag that beyond and then just double click on this pointy bit, that'll take me to the view, and now I can see the 3 beds which I couldn't see before. Okay, because now I've extended that crop view to consider these. If I now in this view drag this a bit further out, notice these markers move along with it. Let's drag it out a bit more. Okay, so now I can see the wall and all the cabinets, and then I go back to level 0 and click on this again. Then we can now see that this blue line has kind of extended to take in to this bit. I can extend it even further than this bit. This is kind of a visual marker to tell us where that section is cut in our floor plan, but it's the dotted line that does most of the work as far as this is concerned. So I don't want to see the bed, so I'll just drag that back. So that's the sort of view range of a section cut. So back to the view range of the floor plan. Hit edit. I'll just expand that out again. There are certain objects, casement objects, structural column objects, windows and generic models, which can all be seen above the cut plane. So as I mentioned, this is a generic model. The windows are in there, and these are casement. So we know from our section cut that these are set up at about sort of 1400 off the deck, I think. If I close this down again and choose one of these, it'll tell me that the elevation is 1400 from the bottom of that thing. Let's flick back to this. So if I set my cut plane to 1400, or maybe less than that, so 1200, and applied that, anything that is now above that cut line, which was this generic text, or the model text, should I say, has disappeared, because basically our cut line is now sitting below it, and it's not one of those special objects that we can see when the cut line is below the actual object. However, these casement elements are, plus the windows. The windows are set quite high, so our 1200 is now below the windows, and it's below these things. It's above this, that's why we can still see the telly, and it's probably above this as well. So if I keep moving it down, so I'll move it down to 1 meter, apply, so we're still within the range. It's not above the telly now, but it is actually, if I zoom in a bit, no I can't actually. It's not above the telly, but it's still cutting through it, and that's why we can see the television. If I set it to 600, which I know should be below the telly, and apply that, the television disappears. But this generic box doesn't, even though it is now well above the cut line. So 600 mil, remember that. I'll apply that. OK, and then we'll go back to our section. And that's 1400, the underside of that. The top of the wall is 2 meters, and so 600 mil is going to be, I picked the wrong place to put that in, so just about there. Okay, 600 mil is around about here. So what we're seeing now is a section cut through here. It's picking up all this. It's showing the symbolic lines of these units and so these units. Can't see this, but we can still see the windows and still see this generic box because it's a generic model in the view. We can't see this anymore simply because now our section cut or our horizontal cut is at this level. So it's kind of an awkward way of explaining it. I do appreciate that, but I'm trying to cram as much into this short video as I possibly can. You will also notice that at 600 mil we're cutting through this wall, and for some reason this column isn't behaving, because if I move this column up above 600 mil, so the base of it, let's drag this up, so I say my base offset is 1 meter and apply that. So now that's sitting above my cut plane. If I go back to my level 0, it disappeared, and that shouldn't happen because it did say that it was structural columns were visible. So I'm not quite sure why that's done that, but it has actually disappeared from view. It might be that there's another little tick box hidden deep within some window somewhere that needs sorting out, but we can certainly see the windows and the casement and these generic models. So I'll just reset my view range to something more sensible, because 600 mil is a bit low, but there might be reasons why you want to control it. So again, 1200. It's about sensible. I'll apply that. What do we expect to see at 1200? It's cutting through the telly, so he shows the telly, and we should see that column appear again. So apply that, OK that. Now because this wall is set to 2 meters, what we can also see is a cut through the wall. Okay, so when we cut through things, we have sort of cut line thicknesses, and usually the sort of the boundary, the outer edge, is the thicker one, just to define these elements. It's trying to replicate the way you would use kind of good old-fashioned drawing pens to sort of highlight the thickness of, or the key parts of an element in plan. If I turn thin lines on, we can't actually see any of that, but we can see the makeup, the 2 layers of plasterboard either side, and then some stuff in the middle. This wall is 2 meters, so if I moved my view range up to 2 meters, I would just simply see the top of it, and then the elevation doesn't show these extra lines. Okay, and it doesn't matter where I put my cut through these casement bits, they don't show any more information than simply this. Okay, they're all kind of indicative, but just to prove that, if I did set my view range up to 2 meters, and apply that, OK that, we now just see that this is at the top, so we don't see the lines anymore, even though this wall is going higher, so we do see those, but this is just a simple concrete line. We don't see any more information on these. So even though it's cutting through it, we don't get to see the thickness of this. All right, but we do in section. It's a kind of weird, but you get used to it in the end. Go to view, you notice in section, we can kind of see the thickness of these bits and pieces. Just turn that off so we can see these double lines, but at 2 meters, which is the height of the wall, just running through there, we don't get to see that thickness. So it's all to do with the way they've been created in the family. There's a couple of more things that you need to be aware of, so I'm going to take a little pause for breath, and then we'll come back to those, and that's all about underlay objects and how they work as well.